Welcome to Animal Diversity. Today, we're going to explore a fascinating biological design called metamerism. If you have ever watched an earthworm move and wondered how it stretches and contracts so smoothly, you are in the right place. This concept is a cornerstone of zoology. Let us dive in and uncover the brilliant engineering secrets that nature uses to build these incredible organisms. To understand metamerism, imagine a long freight train moving smoothly along a curved track. The reason the train can bend and twist around tight corners without breaking is that it is not one single rigid block of metal. Instead, it is made up of many individual, repeating carriages linked together in a series. Nature uses this exact same brilliant engineering principle to build certain animal bodies, most famously seen in earthworms. By dividing a long body into a series of repeating compartments, the animal gains incredible flexibility and precise control over its movements. Now that we have a mental picture, let us look at the formal definition. In zoology, metamerism is the serial repetition of similar body segments along the longitudinal axis of an animal. Each of these individual repeating segments is called a metamere, or a somite. For an animal to be considered truly metameric, this segmentation must occur in the mesoderm during embryonic development. This means the segmentation is not just skin deep, it affects both external structures and internal organs throughout the entire body. Let us contrast this with something that looks similar but is fundamentally different. In a truly metameric animal, like an earthworm, you will find repeating sets of muscles, blood vessels, and excretory organs inside almost every single segment. They share a unified internal body cavity. This is distinctly different from pseudo-metamerism, which we see in tapeworms. A tapeworm simply buds off reproductive packets at its tail end. These packets do not share a unified internal cavity, so it is not considered true metamerism. You might wonder why evolution favored this segmented body plan in so many successful groups, like annelids and arthropods. The first major advantage is biological redundancy. Because vital organs are repeated in every segment, if a predator bites off a small chunk, the animal can still survive. The second advantage is localized movement, allowing the animal to change the shape of one specific part without affecting the rest. Finally, it provided a stepping stone for tagmatization, where segments fuse to form specialized regions, like an insect's head, thorax, and abdomen. To truly understand how a segmented animal moves, we must look at the physics of its hydrostatic skeleton. Think of each segment as a closed biological cylinder filled with coelomic fluid. Because fluid is essentially incompressible, the total volume of each segment remains perfectly constant, no matter how much the worm squeezes it. This physical constraint is the secret to their movement. By changing the shape of this constant volume, the worm can push itself forward powerfully through the soil. This brings us to the mathematics of metameric movement. We can model the volume of a single segment using the basic geometric formula for a cylinder. V equals pi times r squared times L. Here, the variable V represents the constant volume of the coelomic fluid inside the segment. The variable R is the radius of the segment, and L is its length. Because the fluid is incompressible, the volume cannot change. Therefore, any decrease in the radius caused by muscle contraction must result in an opposite and dramatic increase in the length to keep the equation perfectly balanced. Let us see this formula in action with a practical example. Imagine a resting earthworm segment with an initial radius of 2 millimeters and a length of 5 millimeters. First, we calculate the initial volume, which comes out to 20 pi cubic millimeters. Now, the worm contracts its circular muscles, squeezing the segment until the new radius is just 1 millimeter. Since the fluid is incompressible, the final volume must still be 20 pi. We set up our equation with the new radius of 1 millimeter and solve for the new length. The segment stretches to a final length of 20 millimeters. Now that we have calculated the answer, let us prove mathematically why this massive elongation happens. We start by equating the initial and final volume formulas. By canceling pi and rearranging the terms, we isolate the final length. Notice that the new length is the old length multiplied by the square of the ratio of the radii. Because the radius is squared, having the radius does not just double the length, it quadruples it. This squared relationship is the exact mechanical secret that allows earthworms to powerfully wedge themselves through tightly packed dirt. Moving from a single segment to the whole animal, we need a new formula to find the total body length during a wave of movement, known as peristalsis. Because the segments are in different states of contraction, we cannot just multiply one segment's length by the total number. Instead, we use this summation formula. L total is the overall length. We multiply the number of short segments by their length and add that to the number of long segments multiplied by their length. This perfectly captures the additive nature of a metameric body plan. Let us apply this to a small annelid worm with exactly 50 segments. During peristalsis, let us say the first 10 segments are contracted longitudinally, making them short and fat at 2 millimeters each. The remaining 40 segments are contracted circularly, making them long and thin at 6 millimeters each. We substitute these values into our equation. Multiplying the short segments gives us 20 millimeters, and the long segments give us 240 millimeters. Adding them together, the total body length at this exact moment is 260 millimeters. Let us visualize everything we have learned with this diagram. You are looking at a cross-section of an earthworm's body. Notice the vertical walls called septa that divide the body into isolated compartments. On the left, the longitudinal muscles have contracted, creating short, wide segments. On the right, the circular muscles have contracted, squeezing the segments into long, narrow shapes. The arrows inside represent the fluid pressure pushing against the segment walls. This dynamic, ever-changing shape is what enables the wave-like peristaltic motion required for burrowing. We have covered a lot of ground today. Let us review the key takeaways. First, metamerism is the serial repetition of body segments, providing a highly successful evolutionary body plan. Second, these isolated, fluid-filled compartments function as a hydrostatic skeleton. Because the fluid volume is constant, a small decrease in radius creates a massive increase in length, powering the animal's movement. Finally, this architecture gives the animal biological redundancy and the ability to perform complex, independent segment control. You now understand the fundamental mechanics of metamerism.